Okay, so we're going to move on to looking at making it happen. This is really Sarah's piece. She's going to explain a little bit about the background to the piece of work we did. We'll have a look at the game online, and then Sarah will walk through the process she went through. A couple more polling questions just to get us into the right frame of mind. I'd be very interested to see the extent to which your organization has embraced gamification so far. So John, if you could open that polling question, we'll just get a sense of where people are with this one. That's great, thank you. So very interesting, and again, that tallies with what we're seeing across the industries we work in financial services and retail and pharma and others. Very, very few organizations would say it's a core part of the learning strategy, and for the ones who are, congratulations, you are ahead of the game. Most of them do split the way it's split here between organizations that have dabbled but have no clear game learn strategy and organizations that are yet to try gamification of learning. What's interesting here is partly that hopefully this session today, particularly for the people who have yet to try gamification, and certainly Sarah's story and the perspective she brings, there are many obstacles in the business to getting that first game learning experience out into the business. And when you have had that first success, there's certainly some thought that can go into how you capture the success and you market that internally so that the dabbling becomes more of a learning strategy. But thank you for your input there. That's very interesting to see. So we're going to move on to another question. Based on the fact that only 8% of us think that we have game-based learning as a core part of our strategy, what do we think are the greatest obstacles to gamification? And again, John, if you could put this poll up, this would be a useful one to see as well.
I'll be really interested in what the results of this question are because, you know, our greatest obstacle, we're a fairly conservative utility business, was convincing leaders that gamification did not trivialize the subject matter being tested and being trained on, and that this training would be an effective method to go forward with.
Absolutely. Okay, let's take a look at these. So that's fascinating, and again, it very much ties in with what we've seen before. So really, the issues here are convincing senior management and getting the design right, and that's absolutely right. Interestingly, only 5% have said that convincing the learning population is an obstacle. I've seen it be an obstacle, but most often I've seen it be the very opposite. The learners are crying out for it. They're very easy to convince that it's a good idea. Not always, but usually they are. But that senior management can be difficult, and it's very easy to get the design wrong. It's very easy to come up with a design that ends up taking up too much of the business's time, too much of the business's money, with not enough of a return. And a couple of people have said here that satisfying the regulators that training has taken place can also be an issue, and I think that happens when people forget to build in the robust training, tracking, scoring mechanisms that you would typically find in training courses. Just because it's a game doesn't mean it doesn't have to track and score properly. Okay. By the way, I'm seeing some interesting questions coming in here, so I think hopefully we'll have a couple of minutes at the end and we can certainly take the conversation offline if we need to. So we're going to take a look at the case study now. Sarah, do you want to just position this before I open up the course and we have a look at the online course that we did?
Oh, absolutely. The Integrity case study, you know, one of the pieces that we were working with is that with having almost half of our workforce in Illinois in the United States, Integrys had a requirement to provide alcohol and drug policy training. So with the requirement, we wanted to make sure that if you have mandatory training, that you really make it meaningful and valuable. You only have so much time. We have almost 5,000 employees. So to take that much time and much people away from their work, we wanted to make sure that it was valuable. For that reason, we pulled in 3 additional key policies to train on. And we're a conservative utility business, so going in a new direction was also something that we had to think a lot about. We had several objectives we wanted to meet when pulling together what ended up being Integrity. We wanted to grab the attention of the learner. We were hoping that by grabbing their attention, we'd have higher retention rates for the material that we were training on. Also, we realized that policies may not be the most exciting material to be trained on. Not only did we want learners to have a better understanding of the corporate policies that we were rolling out here, but we also wanted to create policy awareness overall. And with past trainings, we had a lot of learners that would go and skip to the end of the training to do a knowledge check. And if they did that, they completed it and had to check the box type of thing. Really wanted to do something different, and so what Integrity ended up being was that the knowledge check was the training, but we'll get into more details on that. Also wanted to maximize the value of the training by reducing seat time. Average time that we wanted to go for was about 20 minutes. It wasn't too much, too little, and also could efficiently be put into the day for a lot of our employees. We also needed to be able to track completion and view what areas learners were struggling so that we knew what we needed to train more on or have more awareness around. And we also wanted to get the message out there. Compliance training doesn't have to be boring. It doesn't have to be dry. It's basically knowing the rules and why they're out there. So with that, I'll move on to the next slide on our road to building the integrity what we had. And really what I described was we had a need for training. And what we wanted to do with that is we were looking for a bunch of different options because I need to build our compliance and ethics compliance library, in essence, for training. And so we had already been looking at a bunch of different options, vendors, internal, what did we want to do for this? In our research, we identified interactive services, and interactive services had provided us with a sampling of the trainings that they had created for other companies. And although, we didn't go with interactive services right away, I remembered them from a year later, and some of the training that they pulled together, I'm like, oh, we got to go look at that again and get a quote and pursue it from that avenue. I remember being really impressed with what we saw, and so that's why we pursued them. Selecting interactive services was easy from our standpoint because, we knew that we were going to see a great product. They had a project plan methodology that was not something we saw with all vendors, and they were willing to work within our budget. So that was great. The tougher thing, though, because selecting interactive services as our vendor was easy, the decision to do gamification wasn't that easy. I knew it was a huge risk for our organization. Our organization has been doing the same type of training for years and years and years. I was thinking that we'd have some pushback, which we did. I know that not everyone likes games, and I was worried that it wouldn't be taken seriously. Games are supposed to be fun, but the subject matter still needs to be taken seriously. And the biggest item was it's change. It's different. It's something that we hadn't done before. So what I did when I was approaching this is, after I made the decision and had to then go to my leader to get them to buy in, is I didn't necessarily describe it as a game when I was talking about it, but rather the fundamentals of the learning concept and how to engage learners, having them be part of the training. My leader wasn't excited about taking all the risks of rolling out this type of training for the organization, to be honest with you. And so I needed to find partners throughout the organization to secure funding for this project. And because we had several different policies that we were looking at, which are actually owned by other areas of the organization, I didn't necessarily have to sell them on the gamification or doing game for the training. It was more on what their need or what they were looking for. So partnered with human resources, physical security, and information technology. And human resources, they were already on board. They wanted to do something different. They were looking to actually take this opportunity. Physical security, the game was a highlight for them. What they were more excited about, though, was that this was mandatory training, and so it would be going out to all of our employees. And then information security, data protection being such a huge item, they were very interested in creating more awareness around this. So selling on the actual format of the training wasn't the big thing. It was really looking at what they needed to accomplish. So the design part, now this is the fun part, and we had a really good time pulling this together. It wasn't your typical training that you're putting bullet points together. This actually was a lot more fun for a process. So why don't we do a quick demo of the Integrity game at this point?
Let's do that. So I'm just going to close this down and open up the game itself. Okay, so if I walk through quickly what we're looking at, and then Sarah, I think, can give a little bit of color about why it works for Integrys. So the central concept here is that you're playing an online board game. So we borrowed from various board games that we were familiar with some of the paradigms that we know work very well in those kind of games. There's a board that the learner's going to move around, and there are different elements which I can explain as we get into it. So when we click Start, the first thing that we get to do is we get to choose our player piece. And you'll notice that everything we see in this course is relevant to the company. So it's either iconographic, or it's on brand, or it's representative of the industry that they're in. So in this case, we're going to select a player piece. I will select the truck. Here we are. So now we can see that the truck has landed on the start square over on the right-hand side here. We're going to make our way around the board, and as we do, we're going to encounter different kinds of squares. The squares are going to show us videos or put us into scenarios, or they're going to ask us questions. And all the time, we have to try to progress. The reason we need to answer the questions correctly is that up in the right-hand side, we have this riskometer. And the more questions we answer correctly, the lower our risk level will be. The more mistakes we make, the higher the risk level. So this is a good example of how a game can be fun without necessarily needing to be non-serious. This is about reducing risk, and it's about making sure that you are staying on message with the policies. The policies, by the way, all live up in this resources section. And the idea is that while we wouldn't expect someone to read and necessarily recall everything from a policy, they can use it as a reference tool. Get too many questions wrong, too many strikes over here, and you end up in jail, and you have to get out of jail, which obviously is borrowed from Monopoly. So we're going to roll the dice. When we roll the dice, it shows us which squares are available to us on the board. And if we move on to a star square, a question appears from the pack, and we answer the question. We receive instant feedback, and that feedback has affected our risk level. You can see up in the top right, this is flashing because we've just reduced our risk level by getting it correct. I'm going to roll again. This time I'll move on to a video square. Now we're going to watch a video, and then we're going to respond to it. So the question will be asked is all around responding to that video. I'll turn the sound up. I'm not sure how well it will come across the webinar, but just so you can get a sense of what the experience would be.
Successfully answer a question about this topic and reduce the risk.
So ethics comes first, right? And then you talk about compliance. I like to tell people we don't comply for compliance sake. We don't comply to avoid fines and penalties. We comply because compliance is part of delivering on our responsibility for safety, for reliability.
Okay, so we're presenting a video, and this is an expert video that we're working through. Having worked through the video, we're going to answer a question on that, and it will move us on to the next stage in the game. So I'll roll again, and we'll see if we can show a scenario square. They're a little bit different. In this case, we're going to meet some individuals who are in a situation they need an answer to their situation, and we're going to help answer a question to get them out of trouble and to reduce the risk in this scenario.
They've worked together for a few years now. They're good friends. In fact, they often get their two families together for barbecue. But Frank is starting to feel concerned about Jesse and is worrying about what to do. About a month ago, Frank noticed something was wrong with Jesse.
So we're going to walk through a series of conversations between these two guys.
Jesse seemed a lot better. A few weeks later, Frank confronts Jesse about a concern. Frank's worried. Now that you've learned about Frank and Jesse's scenario, try answering the question correctly to reduce the risk. But get it wrong, and you'll add a strike to the strike-o-meter. Substance abuse in the workplace can create problems that may impact you and the company. What can Frank do to help Jessie with her substance abuse problem?
Okay, so turn the music down again. So you've seen there are three different types of questions that you encounter as you work your way through the board. One of the things I should point out here is that the dice is rigged. We will not let you get stuck in this game. So if you need a 5 or a 6, you're going to get that 5 or a 6. If you need a larger roll or a shorter roll in order to finish the course, that's what we'll make sure you get. So without being too prescriptive, we do ensure that the seat time is limited to the 20 to 30 minutes that Integrys can allow their employees to take. So what's interesting about this course is it's essentially a game menu sitting over the top of a fairly traditional learning engine. It's presenting you with information, it's asking you questions, and every question that you answer, whether it's a video square, a scenario square, or one of these cards here, or a question to come out of jail, is tracked and scored, and that's what gives you the compliance tick in the box that you need. So what I'll do now is I'll just hand over to Sarah, because I think she has some color to give around this.
Yeah, exactly. This was you know, some of our key objectives and functions for the training, and it will help answer some of the questions that have come through as well, is we really want to engage the learner. This isn't passive learning, but it's active learning. They actually have to go and click and touch and look at different things. Also, you know, it's 12 questions that they have to, well, 12 questions that they have to answer correctly in order to complete the game. So it's 100%. And it has the 3 different types of questions out there. So there's different styles and there's different looks. We have the videos, the scenarios, the multiple choice, and true and false questions. So it's not one-note type training. That was very appealing. Also, for the question that came up, you know, what do we do when we have special needs? Well, in our case, we actually have employees that need to do classroom setting. It's easier. We don't have PCs available for all of them. So we have this created into workbooks. It's not as flashy. It's not as interactive by any means, but it was an alternative that we needed to do for that subgroup of our employees so that we had something available for them. And also ones we had to have transcripts written for some of the videos for the ones that are hearing impaired as well. You know, the other items that this had that really liked was the videos, which featured, that's our CEO, Charlie Schrock, reinforced the tone from the top on this training because that was really important. And then the learner was able to see their progress, which is obviously with that risk-o-meter up in the corner of the screen. You know, that's pretty neat as well. We were able to determine which questions learners are not able to correctly answer. This was the target training in the future. So we could see which of these questions that came up Actually, the true and false and multiple choice ones, there's behind there, they only have to answer 5, but there's a series of 42 different questions that come up. The other nice thing about this, which it doesn't show here, is when the next time you take it, it's not necessarily that they're going to be, the answer is going to be B every time. It will switch to D or C or A or whatever. The other thing, I don't know if you can't tell from this necessarily, but this is personalized for Integrys. This is our training. We can see that through our game pieces, which represent our business products and services. And the center of the game board is actually our regional landscape. So having that personalization, and the name of the game, Integryty, also of our name, Integrys. And to be honest with you, providing training in a concise manner. Seat time is averaging a little over 20 minutes. I think that's perfect for this. And plus, we know that in order to complete the training, they have to have 12 questions correct in order to have the system tell them that they're complete, they're done, they won the game. So those are some of the dynamics that were pretty important to us with that training and how that worked out.
Fantastic. Thank you, Sarah. Okay, so I'm very conscious of time, and we've had several really good questions in that I think we should try and get to before the end of the session. So Sarah, did you want to just finish up briefly on how you rolled it out to leadership and the beta release to the CEO? Because for anyone who's thinking about doing their first piece of gamification, I think it's a useful model to follow.
Right. Rolling out the training was maybe where panic set in for me, and we really wanted to have, it was a team that worked on this. This isn't just a one-man show. I wanted to have a methodical rollout for the organization, knowing that this is different, this is change. Wanted to make sure that we were rolling it out in a manner that would be most accepted. So what we did to have that happen is we did a beta release to our CEO and got his feedback, and so that we were able to tailor the rest of the rollout. You know, his overall comment was a good experience, a great way to take the training. We were able to incorporate his constructive feedback when we rolled it out to the rest of the leadership team. We also had his buy-in, which was pretty key when you're rolling out something that's a fairly significant change. The next piece that I think was key for this training to be successful was rolling it out to all leadership within our organization. And the reason we did that is because, for one, we wanted them to be able to see it before their staff did. We also wanted them to be helping us troubleshoot and really have that understanding of what is the seat time on this, what are the expectations that they can have of their employees as they're going through this. We've done now fairly almost all the rollout for all employees for the organization. We're planning to be done by the end of this month. And you know, we get the positive and the negative feedback. Negative you get right away because people want to, but we've gotten an overwhelming amount of positive feedback on this, which is not solicited. We do have a survey at the end, which will be compiling that information once we complete the training. And right now, that's all looking very positive. I'll just quickly, because I know we only have a couple minutes here, is some of the feedback that we've gotten is the concept is pretty neat. Pick a token, roll the die, and play the game. Great concept. The game idea is novel, and that was from a supervisor. The Integrys game is a fun way to get the compliance message across. I mean, we've had tons of feedback on this. And then just kind of wrap up. We're not full of the whole process of this. We're going to be wrapping up hopefully near the end of May. And having gone this route, I definitely would have done it again. I may have made it a little bit simpler concept, maybe, more Jeopardy than Monopoly, but I'm really looking forward to what we go forward as an organization, knowing that this was a big leap for us and having such positive feedback.